Hello, this is Dope Wooks with another edition of Old School Boxing Talk. Uh, Last Sunday I had the honor of being on Retro Boxing Documentaries hosted by the great Blood Boxing, and I hope to do more. If I'm honored enough to do more work with Blood and Kurt Sugar and some of the other boxing aficionados that were on there, I thank them for just answering a question. I in this era of boxing, you have Gary Russell Jr. calling out Terrence Crawford because, as I pointed out with Blood and the folks on the panel, is their business to take care of it 126 pounds? Yes, but those guys don't want to give Gary a fight. Hell, PBC had Leo Santa Cruz at 126, both him and Gary, and never made the fight. For some reason, the other champions at 126 do not want any smoke with Gary Russell. So now people say, well, Gary Russell only fights once. Yeah, he'd fight more if he'd get the fights. Apparently, the other champions at 126 want no smoke with him. Okay, fine. So now you go to 130. Okay, who's at 130? You got Miguel Berchelt. Well, that's Top Rank. Top Rank is not putting Berchelt in there with Gary Russell Jr. They're not going to do it. Top Rank is once Oscar Valdez or to short Shakur Stevenson, their fighter to beat Berchelt. So there's that title's out the way. The WBA title is again held by Leo Santa Cruz, who's going to be, I guess, fighting Tank Davis. Leo wouldn't fight Gary at 126. He's not going to fight him at 130. And he's going to fight Tank. And if Tank wins, Tank is not going to fight Gary Russell. That takes that one off the table. The WBO champion is Jamel Herring. Again, another Top Rank guy. You're not getting that fight. And the IBF champion is a guy that Gary Russell already beat. The IBF champion Gary Russell beat him when he defended the title at 126 against him. So he's not going to fight Gary Russell again. Matter of fact, he's supposed to rematch Tevin Farmer. I forgot it. Jojo Diaz. So Jojo Diaz is supposed to rematch Tevin Farmer somewhere, but the point is, Jojo Diaz was beaten by Gary Russell. Jojo Diaz is not going to fight Gary Russell at 130. Not going to happen. Okay, so that's not happening. Okay, so 130. Now we go to 135. Where the only one that says he wants to fight him is Devin Haney. Says he'll fight him. Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, again, those are two top-ranked guys. They're going to fight each other. But even the winner of that is not going to fight. Which, if Lomachenko wins, Lomachenko is the only guy to beat Gary Russell. So, Lomachenko doesn't seem, in the pros, big on rematches because he wouldn't give the man that beat him, Orlando Salido, he wouldn't give Salido a rematch. I don't think he's going to give Gary Russell a rematch. So shut that door at 135. That maybe there's a fight there with Devin Haney. I don't know. But I'm just bringing you division by division, telling you why Gary Russell's calling out Terrence Crawford. At 140, those boys aren't really worth his time. Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Gary Russell beats both of those guys handily, and it really does nothing for him but stick him with belts that he's going to vacate. So Gary Russell's in a point where he's daring to be great. He wants to fight the big names. So he wants Lomachenko, Shakur Stevenson. They're in here around his wheelhouse. They're in his division range, but neither one of them are going to fight him. Devin Haney, I guess we'll fight Devin Haney because if we can't get Lomachenko, we're not going to get Shakur Stevenson. We're not going to put this. We're not getting any of the top ranked guys. None of the top ranked fighters are going to be in a hurry to fight Gary Russell. So maybe there's Devin Haney, but Devin Haney's going to pull his bullshit. Oh, we got to be on the zone, the dying app. So that's what's going to fuck that up there. If Devin Haney needs to shut his mouth, come on. The fight's going to be made, take it to Showtime, and him and Gary Russell can rumble. I would like to see that fight, by the way. I'm an advocate for that fight. I'd rather see Gary Russell fight Devin Haney than see him jump to 147 and fight Terence Crawford. But the fact that he is daring to be great in today's era with today's prima donna fighters, I love that about Gary Russell. He gets much respect from me for daring to be great. Because, like I said, outside of last week when Devin Haney said, yeah, I'll fight you, everything from 126 to 140 was shut out to him. And even at 140, it's shut out because, again, that's a top-rank controlled deal. They're not going to fight Gary Russell. Now we go to 147, so you might as well say I'm at 140. What the fuck called Terence Crawford? Terence Crawford is fighting nobody. Terence Crawford is sitting there saying, I only want Pacquiao. I only want Errol Spence. Well, guess what? Manny's not fighting this year. Errol Spence is fighting Danny Garcia, who was your mandatory, but Danny decided to go fight Earl. So let's rewind. Danny Garcia was a mandatory WBO challenger after that Kuva Lucas debacle. Danny Garcia was moved to number 1, but Danny Garcia is also number 1 to BC, which is the position Sean Porter is now in. Sean Porter now finds himself the number 1 contender for the WBC and the WBO title, the position Danny Garcia previously held. And he's number 2 for the IBF. Now, do I think Sean Porter will fight Terence Crawford? No. I think Sean Porter will go and try to fight the winner of Errol Spence, Danny Garcia. Because I think, for some odd reason, I don't know. I just a hunch to me. It seems like Terence Crawford and Sean Porter have some kind of little deal going on. And I think that Sean will go after Earl, a rematch with Earl, rather than go take, fresh. You've never fought for the WBO title, but that's my friend. And instead of going and fighting for that title and bringing that belt back and saying, okay, and putting yourself in a position where you can now call some shots, you're going to go wait for the winner of Earl and Danny, and you're going to try to interject yourself in that. And again, you're going to once again, it seems like there's willingly or unwillingly, this is Terence Crawford protection program. Now, let me preface my words here. I like Terence Crawford. I just think Terence Crawford made a dumb decision to stay with Top Rank, because Top Rank, if you look at Terence Crawford, you look at the history of Top Rank. Shakur Stevenson right now is with Top Rank, but I believe within the next within the next couple years, Shakur Stevenson is going to wind up leaving Top Rank. And here's why: because there are going to be big fights to be made that aren't within Top Rank that Top Rank is not going to make. And in fact, there's going to be big money for these fighters to be made, and Top Rank is not going to want to pay you. If you look at the history of Top Rank, Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, Mikey Garcia, all 3 very good fighters, very top money-making fighters. When they get to a certain threshold level, Top Rank has a certain level that they're willing to pay you. And the only person that went above that level was Manny Pacquiao, because Manny Pacquiao was a global superstar. He had a whole fucking country behind him. So Manny Pacquiao rated more money because Manny Pacquiao got big because he was in that era with him and Floyd. Who's better, Manny and Floyd? Blah, all that bullshit. And then he got in there and Floyd outboxing for 9 out of 12 rounds. So what the hell? It's the same thing that would have happened whenever that fight happened. Floyd was always going to outbox Manny. Floyd was always going to beat Manny. The only thing that happened was they made more money by dragging it out. But I digress. So, you can only make so much money at Top Rank. So, eventually, Oscar left. Floyd left. Mikey Garcia sat out 2 years to get the fuck away from Top Rank. But Terence Crawford didn't learn nothing. Terence Crawford sitting there, almost him and Bomac. Well, you gonna stay with Master Bob because Master Bob told us. And now you got Debo Russell Jr. not coming around. Yo, Terence, give me that belt, boy. And Bob's, and Terence running his mouth, and Debo calls him out, and Bob's like, well, you need to shut up. Bob looked at Terrence Crawford, you need to shut the fuck up. We don't want no smoke. I'm not dealing with Al Heyman unless it's to my benefit. I don't care about your benefit. You don't matter. You work for me. When I and Bo Mack, you tell him, yeah, Al needs to send over a boatload of money. That's right. That's right, Bo Mack. You tell him what Master Bob told you. That's the dumbest shit ever. Keith Thurman asked for $10 million. Keith knows he ain't getting no damn $10 million. You negotiate. But Keith isn't taking 1.5 that you try to offer Kell Brook either. Kell Brook looked at you like, what? I'm going to fly to the U.S., fight this boy. Man, I can make that. Oh, Eddie Hearns will pay me that. Eddie Hearns will pay me that to fight somebody over on DAZN. Leave me alone. Get out of here. Come back with a real offer. That's what Top Rank does. Top Rank is sitting there telling all these people that we can't get a fight for Terrence Crawford. No. They talked to Ugas. Ugas said I had a conversation with Bob Arum. I said, yeah, I'll fight Terrence Crawford. Nobody sent me a contract. Nobody called me. Bob was ghost. Ray Robinson, who beat Terrence Crawford in the amateurs, said, shit, I'll step in and take that date. Ray Robinson, I guess you're too big of a risk. Ghost. Bob Arum wants people to Bob Arum wants to lowball, because here's the bottom line. Here's the truth, and people don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Terrence Crawford can't draw rats to shit. Terrence Crawford can't draw flies to shit. Couldn't draw rats to garbage. Outside of Omaha, and ain't nobody going to Omaha. Outside of Omaha, Terrence Crawford can't draw shit. Don't nobody give a fuck about Terrence Crawford. Hardcore boxing fans, yes. But you need the casual fans to jump in. Outside of Omaha, Nebraska, ain't nobody giving a rat's ass about Terrence Crawford. He's done pay-per-views that have sucked. Why? Because Terrence Crawford's not a big star. Terrence Crawford is not a pay-per-view star. He's not a star at all. He's pretty much was considered the best fighter pound in boxing. And you have skill, but you got to have that little something extra. This little Sugar Ray Leonard had it. Sugar Ray Robinson had it. Sugar Ray Leonard had it. Floyd Mayweather had it. Earl Spence is starting to develop it. And that is a little bit of a personality. Even Marvin Hagler to an extent had it. And Marvin Hagler hated the press. But Marvin Hagler to an extent had an aura about him that made people want to come and see him. Terrence Crawford has none of that. Terrence Crawford has none of that. And thus, this is why Bob said, shit, I can only make so much with this guy. Yeah, he's got the skills, but he doesn't have that appeal. People really don't. Yeah, people don't, Terrence Crawford, if I see it, I see it. If I miss it, man, that's the kind of indifference. He's not like Earl Spence. Yeah, I want to see young Spence. Or the Charlo brother. We got to see these boys, He doesn't have that. And thus, being that he doesn't have it, Bob is like, look, this is all I can give you because, And Bob Arum has said that Terrence Crawford is not a big draw. Bob Arum himself said it's hard to sell Terrence Crawford. Bob Arum here's the problem with Bob Arum. Bob Arum has some talented fighters, but nobody gives a fuck about him. They somehow in America, we've started dissing our own fighters to push these Eastern European fighters. Well, we found out, and what we find out is that these guys don't really have a big following here. There's not a big following here. Golovkin did nothing. HBO was hyping Gennady Golovkin. Man. There was a smidgen, a little pocket of fandoms that watched him, but it wasn't nothing big. Canelo has Mexico, and Canelo has fans here. Why? Because Canelo was built up by Floyd Mayweather. Yes, Canelo was built up by Floyd Mayweather. People, not only the Mexican community, but the fact that Floyd Mayweather had such Floyd was such a divisive figure that you loved him or hated him, and then with the undefeated thing, people just wanted to see Floyd get his ass beat. Thus, Golden Boy, when Floyd was working with Golden Boy, they built up Canelo off of Floyd. Because if it wasn't for the only reason it wasn't for Floyd, nobody could really give a fuck about Canelo. Even the fighters in Mexico, the great legendary Mexican fighters, Juan Manuel Marquez, Marco Antonio Barrera, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., are saying to Canelo, you have to stop running from the Charlos and Demetrius Andrade. You have to fight these guys. You have to stop running from David Benavidez, and you have to fight him. You can't do this. You're embarrassing us. Because let me explain something to you about those great Mexican warriors. They fought anybody and everybody. They ducked no one. Julio Cesar Chavez fought Frankie Randall. He didn't have to fight Frankie Randall. Frankie Sergeant Randall was a very dangerous fighter. And people that knew Frankie knew how dangerous Frankie was. Chavez did not have to take that fight, but he took it because he was a warrior. He lost it. Okay. He lost it. He lost his first loss. But the fact that he took it, Chavez, an old Chavez, after the loss of Randall, went on another run. Did not have to fight a young Oscar De La Hoya, but he did. He lost twice. But he manned up, he came in and he fought Oscar. He didn't have to, because he was secure. He could have fought whoever he wanted. But he went out there, even at an older age, seeking out to fight the best possible guys. Juan Manuel Marquez, robbed against Manny Pacquiao, finally got his just due. Realized the only way I'm ever going to get a win against Pacquiao is to knock Manny out. He knocked Manny the fuck out. Clean the fuck out. Sparked him. Fought Floyd Mayweather. Marquez fought everybody. And Marquez started at featherweight. Marco Antonio Barrera fought everybody. Fought Manny Pacquiao twice. Fought everybody. Started at featherweight. These guys went out there, fought Marco Antonio Barrera, fought a young Amir Khan. Didn't have to, but fought this young lion. Those guys were truly great. The great Lupi Pintor, WBC Bantamweight champion. Wanted a unification fight with Jeff Chandler and couldn't get it. But Lupi Pintor moved up at it and fought for the WBC Junior Lightweight Championship. A Junior Featherweight Championship. Junior Featherweight Championship. He could have waited. Had he waited another year, he could have got up there, won that title easily. Because Wilfredo Gomez had, after Gomez lost to Salvador Sanchez, Gomez went back to 130, back down to Junior Featherweight, continued his reign of terror at 122. Then, after the pass to Salvador Sanchez, and Juan Laporta won the WBC title, Gomez decided, I'm going to jump up here. Had Lupi Pintor waited another year and waited, he could have went to 122 and scooped that WBC title up. But what did he do? He went up there after Gomez. Great Mexican warrior. 14 rounds of hell. Finally, in the 14th round, I know Gomez's fight was stopped. I don't know if it was because, I think it's because Lupi Pintor's corner just said, man, we just ain't going to send you back out there. Because it was that bad of a beating. But he went up there, a great warrior. This is why those of us that are Canelo fans, you got to understand, when it comes to boxing, over the last, from the late 60s down, the Mexican race has produced some of the toughest fighters out there and some of the greatest fighters out there. And those guys have raised the bar on themselves and on other fighters. That if you go through your whole career and you've never fought a Mexican fighter, I don't know if you're legit. Because those kids in Mexico, they don't do that. Those motherfuckers fighting for like 12 years old, they turn pro. And they have dozens of fights, but they can fight and they're tough. They're not all skilled, but their motherfuckers will see if they test your heart. So, Mexican fighters as a whole, those guys are some of the toughest motherfuckers out there. They have a proud tradition, and for Canelo Alvarez, he's ducking the Charlos. He's ducking Boo Boo Andrade. He's saying, I'm not fighting any more Mexican fighters. What now? What are you saying here? He's everything that those great warriors of Mexican fighters of the past that built that foundation for Canelo to be there. Canelo's saying, I'm not going to do that. And they are now saying to Canelo, what the fuck are you talking about? Get your ass out there and fight the best fighters out there. We don't run. Don't sit there and say, born ready, motherfucker, and you running. We don't run. You know, the Mexican will tell you, they'll tell you, these colors don't, we don't run. Bring your ass. We might not win them all, but you gonna know you've been in something here. Julio Cesar Chavez against Meldrick Taylor. That fight ended Meldrick Taylor's career for all intents and purposes because Julio Cesar Chavez senior now, not junior, senior. When I talk about Julio Cesar Chavez, I'm talking about senior. So if I forget to say senior, please, I'm talking about senior. We're not even going to talk about junior. We're going to act like junior is like The Godfather Part 3. It never happened. Chavez Sr., the beating he gave Meldrick Taylor. Yes, Meldrick Taylor was doing all the flag. He was winning the round. But the beating that he was taking, Meldrick Taylor was done. When that fight, yes, the fight with 2 seconds left, Richard Steele stopped the fight. But even, let's just say Meldrick Taylor would have survived and they let the fight go on. Meldrick Taylor, for all intents and purposes, his career was done. That one night, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. took his heart. He showed us, Meldrick Taylor, it took everything in Meldrick Taylor to just stay there. But he was for all purposes done. He was for all purposes done. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. And I know his people told him, don't fuck with Pernell Whitaker. Stay the hell away from the Whitaker people. We don't want that smoke. Chavez Sr. shit. I'll take the smoke. I ain't afraid of Whitaker. Whitaker beat his ass. Yes, Chavez Sr. got a draw, but the point is Chavez Sr. put himself in there to say, I'll see what's happening. I'm bringing what I have. I'm not letting bunch of people tell me to run for I'm running from no one. That's a great fighter. That's what we expect from our great Mexican warriors. We expect these guys to tell motherfuckers, bring your ass here. And we gonna find out if you're real or if you're fake. And for Canelo Alvarez to constantly, at 154 you ran from the Charlos and Boo Boo Andrade. At 160 you're running from the Charlos and Boo Boo Andrade. Now you're going to 168. You're saying, I'm no longer going to fight any more Mexican fighters, so you're trying to duck David Benavidez. David Benavidez was the 168-pound champion, and you never brought his name up. But the minute they take the belt from David Benavidez on the scale, now all of a sudden you want that BC belt. But when Dave Benavidez had that BC belt, you want to know part of it. You was talking about, let me go see what's happening over the WBA side. Let me go see what's happening in the WBO side with Billy Ho Sanders. Let me go see Callum Smith's got the WBA title. Let me go see what he's doing. The IBF title, Caleb Plant. Yeah, we gonna skip Caleb Plant. We don't want that. If we do fight him, we gonna weight drain him. We gonna do this. We gotta make sure our roids are good now, because he gonna drug testing. Get the good shit, the undetectable shit. Canelo Alvarez as a fighter is a good fighter. Canelo Alvarez as a Mexican fighter is a disgrace, because the great Mexican fighters that I've watched fight, and I've watched a lot of them. Jose Luis Castillo, his fight with Diego Corrales, one of the best fights ever. Those boys went to war. They fought it out. Castillo Corrales is a classic. Castillo, a proud Mexican warrior. The guy who many people felt beat Floyd, is the one guy that beat Floyd Mayweather in their first fight. For all of you Canelo fanboys that'll watch this video and get pissed off about what I'm saying about Canelo, I bring you fact. And this is what I tell you. As a fighter, I like Canelo. But certain fighters you hold to a higher standard. And I hold Canelo to a higher standard than I hold a lot of guys. I hold Canelo to a higher standard because of the great fighters, the great Mexican warriors that preceded Canelo. I hold Canelo to their standard. Unlike you Canelo fanboys who will sit there and lower the bar. I'm not lowering the fucking bar. I've seen too many great Mexican warriors over the course of watching this sport that if you're a Mexican fighter, I hold the bar extremely high for you. When you get to Canelo's level, I expect you to be telling motherfuckers, bring your ass. I expect you to be the motherfucking people say, yeah, I don't want to fuck with him. I don't know if we want to fuck with him too much. Even before we knew he was a cheater, Antonio Margarito was a motherfucker. I don't know if we want to fuck with him too much. Was one of the fighters that, before we knew Margarito was a cheater, he was still one of them tough fucking Mexican fighters. We're like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to fuck with him too much. You know, I don't know. Beat Miguel Cotto to the point where Cotto was never the same after that ass whooping. There are a bunch of great Mexican warriors that preceded Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo Alvarez is doing all of them and all the work they've done a disservice by his cowardice movements. Now, to point this out, the platform that Canelo foolishly let Oscar and Golden Boy talk about it going on, DAZN, is having all kind of problems. First of all, when the whole thing with DAZN came out and Adrian Broner and all the PBC guys, they were trying to get to come over there, looked at that shit and was like, I ain't going to fuck over there. Everybody, all the boxing media people were saying, they're dumb, they should go over there, they offer all this money, blah, blah, blah. But the point, they saw something with DAZN. They saw DAZN, let's wait they figure, this initial rush is here. Let's wait a year or two and see how this thing come in. Because when DAZN came in, DAZN thought they were going to come in and pick up where HBO left off. And they were an app. We're right on your phone. We don't need to be there. We can do this and blah, 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 blah. And pay-per-view was dead. So what did they do? DAZN UK started UK. They let Eddie Hearns bullshit them. That's number one. They let Eddie Hearns bullshit them. And Eddie Hearns told him, oh, yeah, you come with me. We'll go to America. We'll take over the place. Excuse me. They never reached out. If you're going to come to the United States and you're going to say, okay, we want to be in the USA, we won't be in American boxing. And let me explain something to you. The levels of boxing. In the sport of boxing, the UK has the greatest boxing scene anywhere in the world. The greatest, because boxing in the UK is a sport. It's big time. In the US, it's not as big. It's a niche sport, but you make more money. But the money for boxing is in the US. The best trainers for fighters is in the US. The best system is in the UK. Which is why I don't know why a lot of UK people, managers, don't try to import some of these American trainers to come over there and train some of these UK guys. These guys would be a lot better. Because instead of UK guys have always, the best UK fighters, some of the best ones of recent years, have come to the United States and got American trainers. Because for some reason, UK trainers can take you to a certain level, then after that level, you're on your own. It's sink or swim. But they have a great fan base. They're fans. They love boxing. They just don't have good trainers. Or coaches, as we now call them. But getting back to that, now let's get back to DAZN. DAZN, listen to Eddie Hearns. DAZN, it was a dumb move. You're coming to America to get in boxing America. Okay, even though Bob Arum has a deal with ESPN, you don't think Bob would make a side deal? You don't think Bob Backlund would make a side deal? You didn't go. I can see going to Golden Boy was a good move because Oscar and Golden Boy are American. But putting Eddie Hearns as the lead horse in this, Eddie Hearns had to come here and Eddie Hearns had to build up get a couple American fighters. He used up your money and all he had, his major chip was Anthony Joshua. That was all he had. Eddie Hearns wasn't doing a lot of big business here in the United States. Eddie Hearns was on the ESPN Plus app. Before you guys came around, Eddie Hearns was on the fucking app. He was going through Bob. So why didn't you do the same thing that Frank Warren's done? Do the same thing that, that was smart. You make a deal with Bob. You talk to Kathy Duva, for Christ's sake. You get one of these American promoters, Lou DiBella. Give Lou some of the money you were giving Eddie Hearns and Golden Boy. And Lou would have gave you better shit. You would have done better had you went. If you couldn't get it with Bob, you should have went to Lou DiBella. Even though Lou DiBella was has an association with the PBC, he would have done his own shit. You could have had Lou DiBella. You could have went with Kathy Duva. Yes, they're smaller American promoters, but they're American promoters who know how shit works in the U.S. Who the only thing that the difference between them and the other people is the finances. If you'd have financed Lou DiBella and Kathy Duva's main events, you know where you're at right now, DAZN? You're at a good place. Because if you're the finance, that gives Kathy Duva and Lou DiBella the money to go out and get better fighters. They're able to make deals with PBC and other people to maybe bring some of those fighters over to that platform. Eddie Hearns didn't bring you shit. He brought you Anthony Joshua. Eddie Hearns came in there only looking out for Eddie Hearns to groom Eddie Hearns, to bring Eddie Hearns' brand to the U.S. so the American public would now see his fighters. He wasn't doing nothing to help the zone grow. He was doing shit for Eddie Hearns. And in American boxing, nobody really give a fuck about Eddie Hearns. He's some little British idiot that don't know what the fuck he's doing. Look at the shit he did with Chavez Jr. The motherfucker ran away from a VADA test. Caused all kind of issues there. Got himself kicked out of Nevada. Has no big American fighters are going to go fight for Eddie Hearns. None. You didn't get shit with Eddie Hearns. You gave Eddie Hearns a bunch of money, and he wasn't what you needed to get into the American market. You needed a top American promoter to get the boxing fans, and if someone has enough presence here in the U.S. to get the casual appeal for your act. Those people are in the PBC. That's where you should have went. What the fuck? Even if you don't go to PBC, hell, I'd have went to Don King before I went to goddamn Eddie Hearns. Don King would have thrown together a fucking stable. Don King said, oh shit, I'm back. But DAZN, that's where you messed up. You went with Eddie Hearns. You went with Oscar De La Hoya. You go with Golden Boy, okay, but you got to realize when Golden Boy, Golden Boy cut a deal for Golden Boy, they cut a side deal because all you really wanted from Golden Boy was Canelo. That's all Golden Boy has is Canelo. Mistake number 2. If you're going to go to a company, they better have somebody. Like I said, you either better have a hell of, you'd have went to Don King could have got some people. You'd have went to PBC, it worked. You'd have went even try to make a deal with Top Rank. It might have worked. Because, they have people. They can put card together. You don't think if you're going to pay, Bob has a deal with ESPN, but I'm sure if there was a deal to be made for other cards, I'm sure in that contract, Bob would have figured out if there was a way to do business with DAZN and ESPN, legally, trust me, Bob would have figured that out. Bob would have figured that out, and Bob would have made that happen. But you never approached him. You went with Eddie fucking Hearns. So that was your problem, DAZN. You just, and then you wanted Canelo and Oscar and the rest of them. They snuck themselves a deal in there, and they're Golden Boy only. Outside Canelo, all they have is Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Ryan Garcia, and you're giving them a shitload of money. They ain't putting them boys in big fights. They're not doing shit. So you overpaid, and then you brought Gennady worthless Golovkin. Why? Nobody wanted Triple G. The only one who wanted Triple G was HBO. When HBO wanted a business, Triple G was done. On top of that, you overpaid this boy. And what do you get at Triple G? Frank Rose. And, oh, you did get Devinchenko, who beat his ass, but Triple G got the decision. And now he ain't, and now Triple G won't. Now you got Triple G sitting right there to fight a cherry pick. So this is why, as much as I'm mad at Canelo for doing it, because Canelo's a great Mexican warrior. So I expect more from Canelo. But let's talk about DAZN. Being fair is fair. You're asking Canelo for these big things, but you brought Triple G in for what? For Frank, you brought Triple G and paid him all that money for Frank Rose? And for this other little guy he's gonna fight? And whether we like the opposition Canelo has faced or not, Triple G will have had 3 fights on DAZN. When he fights his quote-unquote, now he wants to fight his mandatory. When Jermell Charlo was his mandatory, he didn't want to fight Jermell Charlo. So, you know, it's kind of funny. Now you want to fight mandatories. But it all depends on who the fuck the mandatory is. But Triple G will have had 3 fights on your platform. The best fight was Devinchenko. Canelo will have 3 fights on your platform. 3 fights on your platform. And here's the thing. 2 of those 3 fights are better than anything Golovkin's had. Or going to have. Danny Jacobs and Sergey Kovalev are both better than Rolls and the boy and both better fights than what Golovkin's had. The best fight Golovkin's had on your air was Devinchenko. That's the best fight, and that's the best you're going to get from Golovkin. Golovkin's holding out for that damn Canelo trilogy. You're holding out for the Canelo trilogy. But there's other business. You got Boo Boo Andre sitting right the fuck there. And I don't see you telling Golovkin, hey, go unify. Go fight Boo Boo Andre for that WBO title. Unify the WBO and IBF titles. I don't see that. You saying, well, you just hang on there. You do what you want to do until we get you Golovkin. Till we get you Canelo. You just do. That's not fair. That's not fair. You know, and honestly, if I'm Canelo, I'm saying, you want that fight? Fine. You go take care of that Boo Boo Andre thing. You tell Golovkin, take his ass, so he wants a 3rd fight. Go over there and fight Boo Boo Andrade. If he beats Boo Boo Andrade, we got the fight. Make Golovkin do something. You paying Golovkin all this money, he ain't fighting nobody. So I'm upset with Canelo. The reason I'm upset with Canelo, because like I said, I've been a fan of this sport all my life. 52 years old. Following this sports shit. I've been a fan of boxing. Boxing's my passion. So I've been with boxing almost as long as I've been with my Cowboys. But, you know, the thing is, I've seen so many great Mexican warriors. Bazooka Limon, and so many other great Mexican warriors that I hold Canelo Alvarez to a higher standard than I hold Gennady Golovkin. So my disappointment in Canelo is the fact that Canelo is not fighting, is running away from the best when I expect him to be running to the best. It's like a fireman that's afraid to fight a fire. That's my thing with Canelo. Now, so whatever happens to Canelo in DAZN, I wish him the best luck. I think the best thing is Canelo will get away from that. And I don't want to see him fight this little cherry pick for this WBC title. Wait. Fight Dave Benavidez. Be a man. Fight Dave Benavidez for that BC belt. You know, either vacate the middleweight division or handle your Charlo problem, or fight Dave Benavidez. But come on, Canelo. Do something. Come on. Now, DAZN, like I said, we went on the scene with DAZN. We know why they're failing, because they went business with the wrong people. Now, this is going to be a long video, so, you know, usually are, and I'm looking at the time, it's like 39 minutes. I'm like, shit. Okay, another topic I'm going to cover here that came up. Once again, my man Blood did a video, and they were talking about he's gone through the errors and these sanctioning bodies, which I think they all should be done away with. They're all crooked. When I started in boxing, it was WBA and WBC. And my grandfather, who was following along, used to tell stories about when it was just one champion. He hated WBC. I hated WBA, WBC when I was he talked about when it was one, and and then I researched boxing. There was a question that came up about when you rank fighters by eras and how you rank all-time greats. This is how I do this. Mine. When back in the 1900s and the early days of boxing, in the 1920s, there was a color line in boxing. And even before that, there was a line in boxing where certain fighters couldn't get fights. Those champions that fought in those eras and that drew that color line and avoided fighting the best fighters because of their color, I don't rank them the same as I rank fighters that fought everybody of any nationality. For instance, my instance is this. Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano, in my opinion, who's better? Rocky Marciano. Why? Not because he went undefeated. No. Because Rocky Marciano, in an era where he probably could have played the race card a little bit and not maybe not fought a lot of black fighters, he did. Jack Dempsey refused to fight black fighters. So I rank Marciano a little higher than I rank Jack Dempsey. Even though maybe there are people saying Dempsey's a better fighter. Maybe he was, maybe I don't know. Because, but I know there were quality black fighters in his era that he refused to fight. There were quality black fighters in Rocky Marciano's era that Rocky Marciano fought. So I'm going to rank Rocky a little higher than I'm going to rank Jack Dempsey. Because Rocky Marciano, I give Rocky Marciano more. That's all those fighters that in that era that drew the color line and refused to fight, whether you're black or Latino, whatever, you refuse to fight the color line, ethnic, whatever. I rate you a lot lower than I rank fighters that fought everybody. And that's just the reality of it. Yes, I know, because see, it wasn't a law. It wasn't so much when Dempsey fought. It wasn't a law. It was a choice. See, now when it was a law, that was before. When it was a law that you couldn't have intermixed fights, I take some points off, but I kind of give you a little bit of But when you choose, when you have the choice, and you choose like Jack Dempsey did, I'm shaving some points. Yeah, that lowers the bar for me, with me, because you had a choice. You chose not to fight the best black fighters around, or any black fighters. You chose that. Now, Rocky Marciano, and that people, Rocky Marciano, here's the difference with Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano fought in an era where we all know the mob controlled a lot of boxing. So you don't think that there were a lot of black fighters that Rocky Marciano fought that he could have, I don't want to fight that. He could have used the color line. He could have, but Rocky Marciano fuck that. Just get him in here, man. Fight this motherfucker. I don't give a fuck. Marciano wasn't the greatest, as far as skill-wise, but heart-wise, that motherfucker had heart. And he was willing to fight anybody. And he, too, was in an era when the mob controlled a lot of boxing, where he could have pretty much said, I don't want to fight this guy, I don't want to fight that guy, I don't want to fight that guy. It's the same thing. Hold on, and let me tell you something. There are a lot of black fighters throughout history that have done the same thing. Floyd Patterson fought, the only time Floyd Patterson fought a black fighter was when he had to. He didn't fight black fighters when he was there. When he was a heavyweight champion, Floyd Patterson didn't fight black fighters. He won the heavyweight title, fought a bunch of white fighters, lost to Ingemar Johansson, a white fighter. Went back, recaptured title. Went back, fight a bunch of white fighters. Then when he had to fight Sonny Liston, well, you always seen what happened there. Sonny Liston beat the shit out of him twice. When he later in his career, he went back fighting nothing but white fighters, winning. When he fought Ali because he wanted the title, got his ass beat. So, and I don't think that was Floyd Patterson. I don't know how much it was Floyd, how much it was Cus D'Amato. Because Cus D'Amato himself was a savvy. Cus D'Amato made sure his fighter fought people that he had a 90 to 95% chance of winning. Let's just put it that way. So, but the way Cus D'Amato managed Floyd Patterson during his heavyweight run, I dropped points on Floyd Patterson for ducking talented black fighters that, he just wasn't going to fight. So it goes both ways with the color line, and you have to take that in consideration. Like, I learned something, I thought about something when Blood was talking. He said about when we take today's fighters, or fighters from, and bring them back, we have to look at the equipment and everything else. And that's really, it's something. So like people, Floyd Mayweather say he's better than Sugar Ray Robinson. No, Floyd, you're not. No. Because Floyd, you could not afford in Ray Robinson's era. The gloves were different. You have hand problems. You've had hand problems since you were an amateur. You couldn't afford in Ray Robinson's era, where the gloves were like, those guys were wearing 6-ounce gloves. Those guys were wearing pretty much the UFC gloves, only with covering the whole hand. If you take those UFC gloves and you just make them a whole, you look at those gloves those guys were wearing back when Ray Robinson and Joe Louis were fighting. Those are whole different gloves. Those gloves were not 8 and 10 ounce. Maybe they were 8 ounces. I think maybe Joe Louis' gloves were 8 ounces. But the gloves are different. Those gloves were not used to protect the hand. So, I think that, in my opinion, could Floyd Mayweather fought in Robinson's era? No. Hand problem. Different gloves. Could Ray Robinson fight in today's era? Yeah. Yeah, now we know Sugar Ray Robinson was a diva, and he was a diva. But inside the ring, would that have affected Ray Robinson having a long career? No. He would be, I think today's boxer, Sugar Ray Robinson, would be phenomenal. With what he brought, Sugar Ray Robinson would be phenomenal. He'd probably, he'd be phenomenal. A lot of those fighters from you got to look at it. If you took them at their best and put them in today at their best, from their era at their best to today at their best. You take a young welterweight Ray Robinson, where he won, I think, 143 fights before Jake LaMotta was the first man to beat him. You take that Ray Robinson and put him in today's boxing with today's modern technology, with his skill level now, but with updated stuff that they have today. My God, he dominates. And he was Ray Robinson was a performer as well. He would dominate. I think that would he have gone as long undefeated? No, because the thing about Ray Robinson, so many eyes and he had so many things going on outside of boxing in today's world with entertainment and everything else. I think he would have had a shorter career. But I think that he'd have been just as hungry to, if you got him before he became, he'd have been fantastic. Would he have fought as long? No. Because, the social media and everything today and the star power and everything, it's a totally different era today as is with 50s. I think Ray Robinson wouldn't fight as long. He's a good looking guy. He'd have fought long enough to make his big money. He'd have, but you got to look at those things with the eras. So, and of course, now last but not least that I want to talk about, other than corrupt governing bodies, is I find myself in a predicament. Because I'm a guy that has a passion for the sport of boxing. Love it with all my heart. And it gets harder and harder for me to talk to real boxing fans. You have all these new fly-by-night boxing fans, I've been in a few posts where somebody will post something and I'll post a reply like, okay, one of the hottest topics, and this is my opinion, and I don't know, you don't share it. But the Hall of Fame to me is a joke. Because you have fighters in there that don't belong there. Arturo Gatti does not belong in the Hall of Fame under any circumstances. He's not a Hall of Famer. He was a glorified club fighter who, whenever he fought top-notch opposition, was treated like the glorified club fighter he was. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion of Arturo Gatti. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not. And but he's in there, and I said, if whenever the Hall of Fame goes up, I said, well, fuck, Gatti's in there. Put anybody you want in there, because when you lowered the bar to put Arturo Gatti in there, then shit, what the hell? It's hard to even think about Hall of Famers now because because some people, again, just like some of you Canelo fanboys have lowered the bar for Canelo, same thing has happened in the Hall of Fame. We're lowering the bar. Their fighters, a guy like Gatti should not be in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame's for the very best of the best of the best. And I'm sorry, Arturo Gatti is not that. He held belts at 130 and 140, belts at 130 and 140. Belts. He was never the champion. He was never the big dog. He was a belt holder. He won a belt from Tracy Harris Patterson, who was schemed into the IBF title, and Gatti beat a guy, Tracy Harris Patterson, who you look at his career, you know. And then no, Gatti's not a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry. And I got a lot of slack. People are up in arms like I asked for their kidney. And the problem with boxing is you can't have reasonable debate because I can sit there and talk to reasonable boxing fans, and you have all these fanboys that really disturbs me. I'm a member of the Roberto Duran fan club. Duran, in my whole personal, I have a personal pound for pound, all-time pound for pound list, and my personal one, Duran, is number 3 all-time pound for pound greatest fighter in the world, greatest fighter in history. I believe Roberto Duran is the greatest lightweight ever. Now there are some people that that put Duran numbered, most people that do anything with boxing historian consider Duran the greatest lightweight champion ever. He just, oh my God, and Duran was at lightweight, Duran was a fucking animal. Jesus Christ. And and I got in a debate, we had a debate about, I got a debate, a little weird. They had a poll up there, about, something on there, and I put down, they had a top 10, top 10 greatest Latino fighters. So I put down Roberto Duran. Then I put down another top 10 greatest Latino fighters. Well, how can you say Duran? And I said, because in my opinion, the greatest Latino fighter I've ever seen, and the greatest Latino fighter in my opinion in the history of boxing, was Roberto Duran. Because Roberto Duran was the one guy that I've seen it live. Duran at Madison Square Garden, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, whoever the fuck, all Latinos, screaming one name: Duran, Duran, Duran. I seen it early when he was still lightweight champion. I was honored enough to go see him fight at lightweight champion at Madison Square Garden. Again, when he fought Davey Moore. Usually now you get fighters, you don't have Mexican fighters at other, Latino fighters events chanting for them. When Duran fought, it didn't matter if you were Mexican, Puerto Rican, Guatemala, whatever. If you Espanol, there was one name: Duran, Duran, Duran. So when you ask me who the greatest Latino fighter of all time is, come on, man. Watch Roberto Duran. Get some of that footage of the stuff at Madison Square Garden. Listen to those people chant his name. Watch in Montreal as they chanted his name when he walked into to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. Watch in New Orleans Superdome as they screamed his name when he walked in to fight Sugar Ray Leonard the second time. Watch how the fucking world stopped after No Mas. Stopped. Nobody, No Mas fucked up everybody. The whole world stopped because nobody could believe it. Boxing was on fucking ABC Good Morning America the night after the fight. All over the damn news, Duran turning away from Leonard. The words No Mas. That's an impact. That is greatness when one man, 2 words. That man's legacy is secure. Greatest Latino fighter ever. My personal number 3 greatest fighter ever. And if you're watching his blood, I swear, please, brother. I know you're doing a Salvador Sanchez thing, because I love Salvador Sanchez. But man, come on, brother. You got to do a Duran one, because I know you, blood, can do it. Oh my God, I'm looking for blood. I want you, please. I'm begging you, do a Duran one, because I know if anybody can do Duran and capture Duran the right way, it's you. And if you want me to be part of that, I would gladly do anything, just do it, man. But if you need me for anything, I'll gladly help out on that one. Fight fans, man, some of you younger kids that are just coming to boxing, before you come at a guy like me, man, or some of the old heads that really have been following this sport, or some of the historians, man, YouTube, go back to YouTube, watch some of these great fights, and understand why I sit back, and we had a conversation again with Blood on his panel about why it's taking so long for these damn welterweights. Why isn't Errol Spence fighting Terence Crawford? And how old Errol Spence and Terence Crawford both in their 30s. And we talked about the fact that, it's kind of funny that when Ray Leonard was 25 and Tommy Hearns was 23 when they fought to unify the welterweight division. Donald Curry was about 22 and Milt McCoy was 21 when they unified the welterweight division. Why is these guys taking so long? And it's because they're too busy, with this A side, B side, and about money. Today's fighters, in my opinion, a lot of them, they don't care about their legacy. They just care about their pocketbook. And now, I'm not knocking them for caring about their pocketbook. Don't get me wrong. Make all the money you can, because boxing has no pension, no health care, and once you're done, the promoters don't give a fuck about you. But guys, while you're in there, and this is why, again, it can bring it back to Canelo, why I'm so hard on Canelo. There's a little thing called a legacy. You look at Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns walks through any boxing event and he is swarmed. You look at Marvin Hagler, he walks through any event, he's swarmed. Sugar Ray Leonard swarmed. Because of what they gave us in the ring. The thing today's fighters, whether it be the Charlo brothers, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, Shakur Stevenson, Gary Russell Jr., the thing you guys need to understand and ask yourself is, when I'm done and I go to an event, will they remember me? Will they run to me for autographs? Will they walk to me and tell me, hey, I seen you fight so-and-so, that fight was awesome? Or will the old timers, when they see them, will they run past me to get to the old timers like I was nothing and I've left nothing? Fighters today, if any of you modern fighters are watching, or any future fighters, make your money. I'm not against you making money. I'll root for you. If you're good, I'll root for you. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you can fight, I'll root for you. And I want to see. But guys, when you fight, yes, make your money, but also make your legacy. We talk about Duran and Leonard and Ali and Ray Robinson and Roy Jones and Mike Tyson. We talk about these guys because they gave us memories. They put together a legacy. Today's fighters, it's up to you guys. Do you want to be remembered alongside of the Alis and the Ray Leonards and the Marvin Haglers and the Salvador Sanchez who left us too soon, but still left a legacy? Do you want to be remembered like that, or do you want to be, oh yeah, that guy used to fight? The choice is yours, gentlemen. The choice is yours. Till next time, it's Dope Wilson signing out. Enjoy the fights.